Good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining us. Tonight we're in Atlantic for our NAMI Southwest Iowa C.A.R.E.S series. The C.A.R.E.S series is really about opening up the conversation about mental health and disability. Our goal is really to normalize this conversation and bring it into everyone's homes. So we hope that you'll enjoy the program tonight. A little bit more about NAMI. NAMI Southwest Iowa, NAMI, is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, Southwest Iowa affiliate. We serve 9 counties in Southwest Iowa, and we provide things like support groups, educational classes, presentations to raise awareness about mental illness, kind of like tonight, and just a whole host of other things, helping people find resources and helping people make connections. Really, our goal is to provide a way for individuals to learn about their mental illness, learn how to cope with it, anything that is outside of the clinical realm. So tonight we have Kim Cavalier with us from Iowa State University Extension, and she's going to be talking about stress on the farm and kind of how we can help each other. So I want to welcome Kim. Come on up. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I am so glad that NAMI invited me to come up here tonight. My name is Kimberly Cavalier. I am a family well-being specialist with Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. I serve 12 counties in Southwest Iowa, and here in Atlantic, Cass County is one of those. I'm housed down in Page County. Part of my job, I have a focus area, and one of my focus areas is mental health and relationship well-being. So that's why I'm here today. And our program today is going to be called Stress on the Farm, Strategies That Help. And obviously in Southwest Iowa and most of Iowa in general, we either have somebody in our family that is in agriculture, they farm or work in the ag industry, or we have a friend that might, a coworker who farms and works. So in some way, shape, or form, almost all of us are related to agriculture. So I want to start off with a wonderful quote here. The psychological injuries that occur in farming are less well understood. It isn't what the farmer has done, but conditions that are beyond our control that make farming so perilous, like weather events, change in agricultural policy, or market conditions, those kind of factors. And I think what Mr. Rossman is saying is very true. Farming, a lot of things that go on there are beyond our control. And you're going to see throughout the presentation that things that are beyond your control sometimes lead to more stress than things you can control. So let's go ahead and get started about what we're going to learn today. We're going to talk about how we can be more prepared, how we can help ourselves and others when we might become distressed. We're going to review our body's responses to stress, what we feel, what we might physically have happen to us, emotionally, psychologically. We're going to look at strategies that can cope with stress. And we're going to especially look at those, how we can relate them to farming and some recent events that we've had. We've had some natural disasters come through. I know we had some hail just the other day here in Southwest Iowa that really took a toll on some crops. And of course, we are still dealing with the effects of COVID. So we're going to relate all those back together. And then we're going to determine some actions we can take. And then we're just going to follow up on how we can help others. And then I'm going to give you some wonderful resources that Iowa State University Extension and Outreach has that are available online. And I'm also going to leave some here with NAMI so that they'll have access to those as well. So we're going to start off by looking at the general question, what is stress? And I always like to give this analogy of the fight or flight reflex. And that has been in our body since our ancestors many years ago. Our body doesn't understand the difference between a breakdown in the field or the stresses that our ancestors might have had when they might have been attacked by a vicious saber-toothed tiger, okay? So that stress response that our body has, that fight or flight reflex, we jump into gear and we don't, it doesn't matter which it is. Are we fighting for our lives or are we dealing with that horrible breakdown in the field during the middle of planting season? Our body's going to respond. and our body is going to trigger that fight or flight reflex. So this response causes our body to do a lot of things. It produces stress-related chemicals. Our heart begins to beat faster, our muscles tense up, our eyes dilate, our blood is shunted away from our midsection to our extremities, to our arms and legs. We start to find that our mouth dries up, our mucous membranes dry up. So, back when we were fighting the saber-toothed tiger, we would need these reflexes, right? We'd want to run faster, see better, fight harder. But when our body does this over and over to normal everyday stressors, it can have a buildup of effects. So let's look at those chronic stress signs. Over longer periods of time, we're going to experience what we call chronic stress. And look at some of those. Heart attacks, strokes, very common in our farming community. Weight gain, diabetes can come along with chronic stress. Deterioration of our immune system. And we know for a fact right now, we're going through, COVID, it's here. Even the common cold, flu, any of those can be even more detrimental to our health because we have a weakened immune system because of chronic stress. And then you have things like depression, anxiety, addiction, suicide. All of those can be our body's responses to that chronic, prolonged stress response. I'm going to talk about 3 ways that we respond to stress. And the first is emotional. Now, emotional stress can really have a toll on us. You might not be able to see it in your physical body, but you experience it in a different way. The isolation and withdrawal. Farming is already a very isolating job. You think about it, and you might farm with the family or something, but normally when you're out in the combine in the field all day, you're alone. You're working cattle, typically alone. It can be very isolating already. Adding stress to it, it's even more isolating. You're going to see that people who are under that emotional stress are going to have a lack of emotion. They might have a monotone voice when they speak to you. So you'll notice that in the way they have their emotional response with that monotone voice. Impatience, anger, agitation. Do we ever see that in our loved ones who farm? Yes. So we can see a little more agitation, and that might not be for any reason other than a lot of stress going on. Anxiety, fearfulness. There are some things that within the farming and ag community can make us very anxious, very fearful. When the derecho came through and hit some of our friends up in the other parts of Iowa, they lost crops, lots of it. Market prices. We don't know what's going to happen right now. The stock market's fluctuating. That means our commodity prices are fluctuating. And so those things can really add up when it comes to our stress. And finally, difficulty concentrating or confusion. And we know that when we are out in the farm working with animals, working with machinery, losing our concentration, it can cause injuries. I know that my grandfather used to, when he would get hurt, just wrap it up with some electrical tape or duct tape. But we're talking about injuries that can be life-threatening out on the farm. And usually when they're alone, they don't have anybody to help them if something like that happens. So these emotional responses to stress can really be amplified when you have a farmer who's experiencing them. So let's look at some behavioral responses. And again, we're going to relate most of these back to farming, but you'll see that a lot of these will fit to people who don't even farm. So, conflicts with friends, family members, and other people in their lives. When you're under a lot of stress, what's happening in your farming life or in your life in general can definitely affect your relationships with your loved ones. You might see them arguing more with their spouse or if they have a partner in the farm, if it's a family farm, you can see some more arguing and conflict. Excessive food or alcohol intake. When people are stressed, they'll turn to things for relief, and it might come in the form of alcohol or drugs, but it can also come in the form of food, which leads us back to things like diabetes and weight gain that we talked about earlier. Eating, gambling, binges, addiction, those are all unhealthy ways that people deal with stress. And finally, sleep disturbances. And when I say a sleep disturbance, I'm not saying either way. I'm saying it could go, I don't sleep enough, or I sleep too much. It's a disruption in their normal sleep pattern. And the final one, we're gonna go through the other responses to stress before we get to the last one. My bad here. One thing I want you to look for, especially in farmers, is the deterioration of their farm. Now, we know when you take pride in what you do, you make it look good, you take care of your machinery, your barns, your fences. A lot of times if you see somebody who's falling in depression and they're having all that anxiety and perhaps they're having suicidal thoughts, you'll see a direct correlation between the appearance of their farm, their machinery, their buildings, and how they're doing psychologically. And you'll see that deterioration. You also see that they don't care for their livestock in the way they used to. I know that they feed and water their animals all the time, but with that depression and anxiety, maybe they don't do that as well. And you'll see that the animals aren't being taken care of as well. So watch for that as well. And finally, if you have farm children, so perhaps you work in the school and you have children in your class that are farm kids, the stress from the parents, what's going on in their lives at home, can definitely slide over, and you'll see it in the kids. They'll be experiencing the same kind of thing that their parents are. So when are we going to become concerned? Well, quite simply, we're going to become concerned for someone who has a support system that might not be as intact. Having a good support system is going to help with anxiety and depression and stress and all of those things that we're talking about. Not having a good support system, that lack of friendship, that lack of people that are there to help them, that's something we should be concerned about. If they're pushing people away and they're not accepting that support. Unusual changes. It might be a change in appearance, hygiene. They're not brushing their hair, they're not taking care of their physical appearance. Their relationships might suffer. They might not be doing all the things that they used to enjoy doing. Also be aware of any bizarre or alarming behavior. Talk about hurting themselves. They might use that term. Talk about hurting others. Acquiring firearms. Those are all things that could be bizarre or alarming behavior that we need to be aware of. And finally, anytime somebody expresses hopelessness or despair, we need to perk our ears up and listen, because for somebody to express that, they are reaching out for help. So how can you help? Well, the first thing I say is listen. Listen, and then listen some more. Half of being a good conversationalist is stopping to listen. So we're going to really take some time, listen to what they have to say. We're going to provide them support. We're going to provide them support in any way that we can. We're going to be direct and professional. And I teach a suicide prevention class, and I ask the group to say a very difficult phrase. Well, to ask a very difficult question, I guess you'd say. And that question is, are you thinking about killing yourself? Now, that's very direct. And you can lead into that a little bit easier by saying something like, I know you've been going through a lot lately. I can see that you're upset. You seem a little unhappy. But there comes a point that when somebody says, yeah, I've been, really depressed and unhappy, that we need to understand that it's okay to ask the difficult question. And we want to be direct with it. Are you thinking about killing yourself? It's not easy to say. I've said it a million times in trainings like this, and to this day, the words don't come out easily, and that's okay. But having the courage to ask them is something that I am going to ask you to do. So what happens if they say yes? Well, we need to be prepared to get immediate help. That might be by calling 911, taking them to the emergency room or the hospital, or in this area in Southwest Iowa, we are very lucky to have mobile crisis teams. So when you call 911, you can tell them that you're with an individual who is having a mental health crisis or is suicidal, and that you would like somebody from the mobile crisis team to respond. And that's a great resource. We're very lucky to have that because there are parts of the state that don't. So what if they say no? They are not going to go to the hospital. They're not going to get help. Okay, what do I do then? That's hard, right? When they tell you no, I'm not doing any of that. So that's when we offer to do something with them. Ask them what they think might help. Ask them if there's someplace they would like to go for help. Perhaps they are very close with somebody in the faith community, a pastor, a minister, an imam, a bishop, whatever it might be, their priest. Maybe they feel comfortable going there. Offer to make a contact with them. Sometimes the hardest part is that first step. That first step is hard. Asking for help isn't easy. So you can go there. A lot of counties within Southwest Iowa have what they call a community resource guide that has lots of great places you can call. I would suggest you reach out to your local extension agency. Most of them will know where to find that community resource guide, and it can give you a lot of different places you can reach out to for resources. If necessary, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And at the end of this presentation, I am going to have several of those resources on the screen. So if you're watching this recording or you're here live, you need to jot down those numbers. I suggest that if you do one thing tonight, you put some of those numbers in your phone. The one I would suggest as the most important is that National Suicide Hotline. It's answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And those numbers are routed to a resource within Iowa that you can call. Okay, so what if we're just feeling stressed? Maybe we're not at the point of needing to reach out for help, but we need to help ourselves. We need to help our loved ones. So here are some wonderful things that you could do just to help yourself with your stress. And I know we hear it all the time, but relaxation techniques. Whether it be a breathing exercise, whether it be some sort of exercise like yoga or stretching. Maybe you just need to take a mental vacation for a few minutes. Those things can help relieve your stress. And if you don't know what to do, I promise you, you can go online and you can find plenty of guided resources that will help you with meditation or deep breathing. And if you only take 2 to 3 minutes out of your day when you're feeling really stressed, it will help. Exercise. So you guys are just going to say, don't you know what it's like to farm? It's exercise all the time. I do know. I grew up farming. However, I'm not talking about the exercise you get from throwing hay bales or moving cattle. I am asking you to do some exercise outside of that you enjoy. It might be going for a walk, riding your bike. It might be doing, weightlifting, yoga, Pilates, whatever you enjoy doing, that is the exercise I want you to do. 10, 15 minutes a day outside of your normal farming exercise. I want you to talk. If you are feeling stressed, talking helps. Talk to your friends, talk to your trusted colleagues, talk to your spouse, somebody that you know cares about you and is willing to sit there and talk, because I want you to talk, and then I want you to talk more, and I want you to talk more. Talking is one of the best things to do because it is going to help you relieve a lot of that stress. And this last one is one that people are like, really? Humor? I promise you, a good laugh is going to relieve so much stress. And when you're stressed and you get a good laugh, and you watch a movie that's funny, or you have a joke told to you, that laughter, they say laughter is the best medicine, and it really does help with stress. Talk to that person that you trust. Remember I told you to talk? I say it again here. Talk to somebody you can trust. Go on a date. When was the last time that we had a date night? And it doesn't have to be with your spouse if you're not married. Go on a date with your girlfriends or your guy friends. Get out, go have some fun, do something you enjoy. We need to sometimes realize that we can relieve a lot of stress with just a good meal, a movie, something with people that we care about. So I'm giving you permission to go on a date this weekend. Get good sleep. Remember earlier in the presentation I talked about that sleep disturbances, you're getting too much sleep or you're not getting enough. 7 to 9 hours. And I know sometimes that's not possible, but that is the best thing you can do for your health. Your stress levels are going to be much more manageable if you get 7 to 9 hours. So if you have to be up early, you go to bed early. And improve what you eat. A lot of times when we're stressed, it's very easy to go through the drive-thru, grab a burger and some fries and call that a day, right? But eating a good, well-balanced meal and improving our diet improves our physical health, and it improves our mental health as well. And finally, avoid drugs and alcohol. These are negative coping mechanisms, that's all it is. That extra intake of alcohol or using those illicit drugs is not really going to help. In fact, it is going to hinder you. So avoid those. I'm going to ask you to plan ahead. I know that that's hard, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone a week from today. But when we're planning ahead, we can do things in the off season. Maybe that we can do some repairs on some machinery that we know, those tires were getting bad, we need to do that. Check our belts, prepare for those kind of things. We can also look at asking our friends or neighbors if something goes wrong during the harvest season. Could I give you a call? Say I get stuck or something, we'll help each other out. So we plan ahead because we don't know what's going to happen. Set priorities and plan your time. Again, what has to happen today? What has to be done the end of the week? But what can wait? What do I have to get done now? I know everything seems important, but we need to have a priority list so we don't feel quite so overwhelmed. And the last one is hard for so many of us. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say no to those extra commitments. Joining another club, setting on another board, helping out with another activity. We have prioritized things, and so now we know that it is okay to say no to some of those things. If you're asked to do one more thing that adds on to your to-do list, know that it's okay to say no. I would love to help you guys out, but I just don't have the time to dedicate right now. So maybe next year when I'm done helping with this group, I can help you guys. But it's okay to say no. I give you permission to say no. So what I want you to do, whether you're watching this at home or you're here with me now, is I want you to make a plan. I want you to make the plan for yourself or someone that you know that might be experiencing a lot of stress right now. And I want you to make a plan of what I can do related to my stress or the stress of someone I know. What can I do? And I want you to make that plan in the next week. Not the plan Make it now for something that you will do within the next week. I want to clarify that. So right now as you watch this, I want you to say to yourself, I plan to do this within the next week. Maybe you are going to go for a bike ride. Maybe you are going to take your loved one out for that date I told you to go. Maybe you are going to sit down and make a priority list. Maybe you are just going to go get a massage or get your nails done if that's what you like to do. Maybe you are going to spend time with a loved one. But whatever that is, I want you to make that plan now for something that you will do within the next week to help with your stress or someone that you love. I told you earlier I'm going to give you some resources, and I really want you to take some of this information down. The first one is the Iowa Concern Hotline, and this is in conjunction with Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. This hotline is great when you are experiencing stress because they have a connection to legal resources, financial resources, stress management resources. If you don't know the answer to something, this is the number I tell you to call. Now, this is not a crisis line, and I do have some cards for it here, so if you need a card, I encourage you to grab one. If you're watching this later, I encourage you to write that number down. The Iowa Concern Hotline, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's confidential, it's free. They can connect you with a world of resources. And our stress might come from our finances. Our stress might be coming from a legal issue. Our stress might be something that we have no idea what's causing our stress. But they can help you find the resources you need for your stress, no matter what it's coming from. Iowa Concern Hotline. This is the other number that I want you to have. This is a crisis line. This is what you want to call if you need help right now. It is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-TALK, which is 8255, where you can go online. Great resource to have, because if you don't have it when you need it, you're going to be lost. So put that in your phone, keep it with you so you'll have it. I hope you never need to use it, but having it in case you do is very important. Project Recovery Iowa used to be COVID Recovery Iowa, but they have continued it, and I think it's a great resource. You're going to get, I have this written down so I can tell you what all you get. They have virtual counseling and assistance for all Iowans impacted by recent disasters, a lot of those in the farming community, and COVID-19. You can go to their website and you type in your information. You can also contact the Iowa Warm Line, and I'm going to repeat this number a couple times so you can get it, and that is 844-775-9276, and that Iowa Warm Line at 844-775-9276 can provide farm financial consultation and family finance consultation. So it's a great number to have as well. 211, free comprehensive information. It's also got a referral line for Iowa residents for health and human services programs, community assistance, government programs, all through Iowa Department of Health and Human Services, DHS. So that's a great one to know as well, 211. And I have here some of our stress information pamphlets, and these are two of our new ones, Farm Stress and Mental Health, and the title of this presentation, Stress on the Farm. These were done in conjunction with IDALS, which is the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship, along with Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. And if you're not here with us live today, you can go online to the Extension website, and in the upper right-hand side, there's a little button that says Store, and you can go on the Iowa State Extension and Outreach store, put in the search any of these, and those publications will come up. They are free to download for you, and there are all kinds of other resources there, but these two specifically are two of our newest ones that you can access through the Extension store, free. And that's almost our time to wrap up. But just to go over what we talked about those signs of stress, what you're going to see physically, what you're going to see emotionally, what you might see on the farm going on. We talked about some strategies, some very simple strategies to help us cope with stress as it relates to COVID or to farming, anything that's going on in our lives, how to help somebody that's distressed. We talked about some of those important numbers that we need to have, and we also talked about how to ask the question that's sometimes hard to ask, are you thinking about killing yourself, and what to do. And finally, we went over some of those helpful resources that we have. So I have a couple minutes for questions from our actual group, if you have any.
So anybody that has any questions, I'm just going to ask them to come up closer to the camera so that you can be heard.
They're going to invite them up to stand behind the camera so we can hear the questions.
So the first question I have, you mentioned early on about one of the bizarre behaviors or distressing behaviors you might see is someone who's seeking to purchase firearms who maybe hasn't before. I know that firearms are especially with men, you know, that's one of the most frequently used tools for suicide and leads to the most completed suicide.
Yes, it does.
So if a loved one is seeking to purchase a firearm and they have never done so before, or they're purchasing a different type, maybe a handgun instead of, you know, a shotgun or whatever that they have, what would you do? How would you handle that?
I think one of the first things that we can do to help with that is their access to the firearm. Can we get a gun lock on it? Do we have a gun safe that we can put that in safely? Do we have a friend or loved one where that gun can go stay? Now, we're not going to be able to stop an adult from legally purchasing a firearm, but we can find ways to have the access to that firearm while they're dealing with their mental health crisis, and taking away that immediate access. Like you said, firearms are, for men, more common as a means to suicide. And if we take away that access during that suicide crisis, not having the means can sometimes be whether or not they commit suicide, whether or not they successfully kill themselves or not. So that immediate access, to me, is one of the things that we need to look at. Can we safely put that gun somewhere else, put a lock on it, or do something so that during this mental health crisis that they're having, that they don't have access to those means. Same thing that I would recommend if it was somebody who was stockpiling medicine. Taking that means of suicide away in that moment can be very helpful. So that would be what I would recommend, removing whatever the means of suicide might be, removing that from the equation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
So my question would be, so if your spouse, well, it's not a farmer, but hauls for farmers, and during busy season, literally works
24/7.
sometimes round the clock,
Yep.
maybe sleeps 2 hours a night during those seasons, and not only is that stressful for me and the children, but I see how it takes a toll on him, and what can I do to help because so stubborn? Is there anything that...
If I had the perfect answer to
Because
that, I would
know,
be
right?
a miracle worker. My suggestion, we all know that farming and ag in general, it seems to have its ups and downs when it comes to their busy seasons. You know, if you have somebody that's out hauling for a farmer, they are sometimes hauling for 20 of the 24 hours in the day. Mm-hmm. So my suggestion to you is, one, to talk to them. How are they doing? Ask them, what can I do to make things better for you? They might not know the perfect answer, but knowing that you are attempting to say, hey, look, I know you're under a lot of stress right now. You're very busy. You're not sleeping. What can I do to help? And maybe it's that, you know, honey, I would really love it if you would make your famous ham balls or meatloaf. I have not had that. It just sounds so good. That's really the best that we can do, especially when somebody is stubborn. And we all know sometimes we are all stubborn. And we have work to do, and we're going to get it done. We're going to do anything that we can, even if it means we sleep for 2 hours. But if we as the loved ones say, hey, I know, I see it. I'm here. Talk to me. Open up those doors of communication. They might tell you right then, no, there's nothing you can do. But then a day later, they're going to be like, honey, I would really appreciate it if you could XYZ. So the best I can recommend to that stubborn person that won't necessarily ask for help is to offer and open up those doors. So in case they do want the help later, they know you're right there waiting to help when they're ready.
And if I may offer,
Yes.
One of the things that you also said in that question was, not only is he busy and stressed, but it puts more stress on the family.
Yep.
and on me. And as a farm wife, the advice I can offer is that you can't control his busy season and the amount of hours that he has to work. And you do have to kind of be there to support him in that. But you need support as well.
Yes.
And so you have to make those connections outside of your marriage with people who can support you during those times.
Yes.
Whether it's friends or other family members or co-workers or whatever, because you do need that support. And he's not going to be able to give it to you in those times.
Yeah. And I make the analogy of when we're on an airplane and those air masks fall down. They always tell you, put yours on first, because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to assist the other person. So I think that's a great point. You need to be taking care of yourself as well, because if you're not in the right mind space, physically, mentally, emotionally, you're not going to be able to help him. So that was a great point.
Yes, I was kind of going that because I feel sometimes I carry the stress because he's just fine. Everything's fine, everything's fine, I'm fine, it's fine, it's fine, I'm working and.
But
no
you're
big
not
deal.
fine
But
because you don't have
I
one there.
carry all of that because.
And I always say
You're
I feel
gone.
like a single
You're
mom.
gone. Yeah.
When
Yeah.
it's harvest season or.
I've got
planting
kids to
season.
run but I'm still working full time, but I've got to do that errand, and
Right.
I do need to cook, and then there's laundry. And I think that the farm wife deserves the world because they a lot of times work a job. They have kids to take care of. They have a husband who needs support on the farm. And I know a lot of times as farm wives or, you know, farm families, you're getting the call, honey, can you bring me this? Can you run into town and get this? I know farm wives who actually drive, you know, out to pick up grain, or, you know, they run seed out, or they're doing this or that. And it is probably just as stressful, or at times more stressful, on the family of the farmer. You know, so you've got to take care of yourself as well.
And you do have to build up those other supports.
Yep.
Yeah.
Find, you know, that person that you can call
And
up
I'll be the
say-
first to admit I wasn't always good at that. You know, I
But you learned, right?
Yeah.
You can't do it all yourself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I feel for you.
Yeah. I'm getting there. We're 17 years in
Right.
and I'm.
You still have
I'm
things you
just-
need
I don't feel like I figured it
I'm
out until my
still-
son was grown, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit, but yeah.
Learn to
it's-
take care of yourself so that you can
Yeah.
take care of others. If you need to go have a date night with your friends, find a babysitter. Go on a date night. You know, if that's what you need to help yourself feel better. You know, that massage and manicure might be exactly up your alley. So I agree. Take care of yourself, build your network. Your support network is very important, because farming, like I said, it's isolating.
It's frustrating to see what it's doing to him physically and all of that, because I see him get sick more often. I see him when he's doing his runs and nonstop 7 days a week for hours a day and not sleeping. And I can't
You-
make him
you-
stop.
Yeah, and so you bring the stress back onto yourself because you know he's
Because I want him
stressed.
to be healthy.
And because you
So-
can't control that situation, it causes you more stress.
Yeah.
But open up those lines of communication with your spouse and tell him, you know, honey, I know you're stressed. And for my stress, I need to let you know that I'm here when you need me. But I might need to go, you know, take care of myself as well. Find those support people for you and for him. And it'll help. It won't be perfect, but it will help.
Yep.
So,
Okay, I'm gonna throw something else out there that I
Okay.
think is common in farm families. Intergenerational stress.
when you're farming
Intergenerational
with the
families.
families, all, you know, you've got a grandpa who might be phasing out, son or daughter that's taken over the farm, and then the kids are getting to be, you know, late teens, early 20s, talking about coming in.
And especially that, you know, the grandpa and dad, you know, that dynamic is often very, and I'm not talking about any specific example.
In general.
Anybody that knows me, please don't think I'm referring to anything specific, but in general, I just feel like that's very common
It
in
is.
farm families. And, you know, what would be your advice on how to handle that on a regular basis? You know, how do you address that, or how do you learn to kind of tune that out, if you will, and cope with it?
Again, not going to be the perfect answer because there is no perfect answer when you've got multiple generations of farmers who, you know, my grandfather and my dad both farmed, and the way my grandfather did it is definitely not the way they're farming now, right? You know, things have changed now. Everything's mapped out on a computer. You can press a few buttons and things are, you know, so different. So there are going to be things that cause conflict. I think that within the family, if you're part of those discussions, again, keep them open discussions, be honest with people and say, hey, look, we need to sit down and talk. If you're not part of those discussions, then sometimes you might just have to say, okay guys, enough's enough. We're not getting anywhere with this argument. Let's take a break, come back to the table later, because they can get heated at times. They can be very upsetting. And I don't know that anything is going to stop them, but if we open up those lines of communication a little bit better, we can all be stubborn, but if we take a minute.
Communication really is the key.
It is.
And that is so hard for guys.
It's so
sometimes.
hard for anyone, I think. I think sometimes we always want to come in and we say, you know, this is what I want, this is what's going to happen. But if we stop and we talk and we listen, we might not always agree, but we're going to, you know, work to a solution. It's not easy. It's not easy to admit you're wrong. It's not easy to get somebody else to admit they're wrong. So what are we going to do? We're going to talk about it the best we can, come to a mutually agreed upon, you know, solution, and it'll help. It's not going to stop it totally, because we all know when, you know, the auger breaks down during the middle of harvest, there's going to be some issues. We're going to have some fighting amongst each other. But if we all respect each other, communicate, it's the best we can offer, you know, in those situations. I do not have a magic wand. If I did, it'd be awesome.
Thank you so much
Yes.
for that. A couple things I wanted to mention. Any other questions?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
So, first of all, thank you so much for being
Thank
here. And but before we wrap up, I do want to share a couple of resources
Yes.
with our audience.
I'll
So,
let you.
another crisis line that we do have available here in Southwest Iowa, it's called Hope for Iowa Crisis Call Line. And this is for anyone in the 9 counties of Cass, Fremont, Harrison Mills, Monona, Montgomery, Page, Potawatomi, and Shelby counties. It's available 24/7. It's a crisis call line that connects individuals in crisis to a helping hand and the resources they need to address and improve mental health wellness. The number is 844-673-4469. Again, that's 844-673-4469. And then NAMI Southwest Iowa. Of course, at the end of this video, you will see all of our contact information, but for anybody else here, just know that NAMI Southwest Iowa provides additional supports beyond what your crisis and your clinical supports are going to offer. We go a little more in depth. We provide classes for family members and individuals that have a diagnosis they're an 8-week class, so you learn a lot about different diagnoses and medications and ways to cope and communicate. We also have support groups, both for peers, that's the connection support group, and then for family members, our family support group. And those are both in person and virtual throughout the region. So check out our website, NAMISouthwestIowa.com, to learn more information. Thank you and have a good night.